Sway.
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 In the morning.
In the morning.
In the morning.
Shade 45.
Wake your fuck ass up.
That crust out, y'all.
Sway in the morning, Shade 45. Good morning, Mike Muse.
Hey, good morning, Sway. How are you guys today?
We're doing great, man. We got a special guest with us right now, President and CEO of the Hip Hop Caucus. He's a minister, community activist, and one of the most influential people in hip hop political life, as he encourages the hip-hop generation to utilize his political and social voice. It's the Reverend Lennox Yearwood Jr., ladies and gentlemen. He's back.
Yes. Good morning.
Welcome.
Good morning.
How you been, man?
Welcome, Reverend.
I'm doing fantastic.
Man, it's a great time, right? Great time to be alive.
Man, it's awesome. Particularly after that Jesse Williams speech at the BET Awards. I mean, you know, I'm fired up, ready to go.
Yeah, Jesse really got in there, got a lot of people talking, got Justin Timberlake involved in on the conversation, and folks, he got slayed by Black Twitter, and you know, and I think Jesse did something, man. I mean, David Banner's been out there pounding the streets too, and you know, Killer Mike has been out there pounding the streets too.
Jasiri X. I mean, there's so many others. I mean, Vic Mensa. I mean, doing it. I'm just so happy because, you know, from when we first were doing this many years ago, you know, to have artists engaged. I mean, artists have always been engaged. I think people don't understand that artists have always been engaged. But I think that there's a certain level, getting to that Harry Belafonte kind of engaged, where they're kind of a part of the movement.
I see you got the Respect My Vote, hashtag Respect My Vote hat on.
Yes.
And let's talk about that. How's that been going, the campaign?
Well, the campaign has been going amazing. I mean, I think, well, first and foremost, you know, I want to make sure people know that we have been going around getting artists engaged. And so we've had artists from Keke Palmer, Vic Mensa, you name it. In different cities, local artists are engaged in the process. And so I think this campaign, more than any other campaign, has seen artists really want to be engaged and involved. And I think it's kind of the post-Obama moment in which they kind of see what's going on with Black Lives Matter, what's going on with, you know, with Flint and the water crisis, what's going on around this country. And I think this generation, particularly those who are in their 20s, recognize that if we don't get it right now, we'll have some catastrophic results 20, 30 years from now. Yeah,
and then they're witnessing people who look like them, the same age as them, being shot and killed, and no justice really being done, especially in the case of Freddie Gray, as we see a lot of these police officers are being acquitted of any crime. You know, also what happened with Michael Brown and Ferguson, and I think folks are like, oh, whoa, that can happen to them, that can happen to us.
Or me.
Right?
Or me.
So that's why it's even more important now than ever that people register to vote. So how's that been going?
It's been going well. I mean, I think that we are definitely getting folk registered to vote. I think the first step is getting artists engaged in the process. The next step is actually going around here to make sure folks register to vote, get engaged. And I'm also excited because, you know, we've always asked ex-offenders to be a part of the process. We've always led with ex-offenders to be key spokespeople. This year in particular, and that's one of those kind of like Jim Crow laws that kind of hangs around, keeping ex-offenders from voting. And so this year in Virginia, the governor there signed a governor's right and laws allowing 200,000 ex-offenders to vote in this election. And so we're like, man, we're like the Pied Piper. We're like running to Virginia to get all those brothers and sisters to vote because we know what that means for that community.
So you guys spearheaded that?
We were there to help push the policy. And that's what's key. I think that's what about Jesse's speech is that we know that either you shape policy or policy will definitely shape you. And so we in this position, well, how can we create the policies for the hip-hop community to create change? And so that's one of the policies there to help that ex-offenders can vote. And so now we're still dealing with some issues, though. We still have, you know, about 3 years ago, they had the Supreme Court put forth the Shelby County versus Holder, which literally gutted out the Voting Rights Act. And so in gutting out the Voting Rights Act, it cleared out some of the pre-clearances of that bill, which means that certain states who have always been notoriously bad regarding keeping us from voting now have no kind of oversight issues. And so we really want to make sure and restore the Voting Rights Act, that's in that aspect, and make sure wherever ex-offenders are in this country, they can vote.
Okay, well, you know what? I want you to hang out with us for a second. We got Reverend Lennox Yearwood Jr., President and CEO of the Hip Hop Caucus. If people want to find out more about what's going on with the Hip Hop Caucus, how can they reach you directly, or where should they go?
They should just go to hiphopcaucus.org. or they go to spreadmyvote.com to get vote the campaign.
And just to be clear, it's a nonpartisan organization.
Yeah, no, we are like almost post-partisan. We are like beyond the party system because it's not about who we with, but who's with us.
I like that. All right, and then we're going to come back with some more political news with Mike Muse, Sway in the Morning, Shade 45. It's Bobby Ross Avila and Jasuri X right there. Sway in the Morning, Shade 45. Reverend Lennox Yearwood Jr., President and CEO of Hip Hop Caucus. So the Hip Hop Caucus is here. I've been there since day one. I've been down with the Hip Hop Caucus.
Yes, you have.
It's in the front lines, man. Early in the game, baby.
Early in the game.
Punching people out who didn't want to vote. I'm sorry. That's why I didn't mean to bring that part up. Quick things. We are joining the campaign. We already have. We've been advocates here at Sway in the Morning.
You already have been, technically, because you always have been a part of the Hip Hop Caucus, but officially using your platform, I just wanted to say thank you for being a part for the whole show and the whole process to coming on board, and being engaged and using this platform to engage. And I think that means so much for all the artists because clearly hip hop, we respect this show and you, Sway, so much for what you have done. And you have your continuity of using your cultural expression to shape your political experience.
Thank you.
And so we thank you for that.
I love that word, continuity. And consistent. Thank you for that. And Vic Mensa came here and talked about how people could get his music for free.
Yeah. I'm actually him, like Vic Mensa, Keke Palmer, and so many other artists. I'm just, Lil Herb.
Yeah.
I'm just so excited for these new artists. And one of the things about Vic Mensa is that, in the past, when I've done this campaign from when it was Vote or Die, to Respect My Vote for the first 2 times, we've always had artists engaged and kind of shown up at events. But now we have like Vic Mensa and Keke Palmer calling the office saying like, listen, what do we got to do to make this the best campaign ever? Will it mean, can I give out free music? In other words, will that help? Yeah. So if people pledge to vote, yes, that'll help tremendously. So, okay, I'm going to give out my next mixtape. Use that. And then, initially, can I go out here and do block parties? And then you have artists doing that. So I think that now, I don't want to say the other generation because we just kind of did what we had to do from before, from 2004 and 2008 and 2012. But I think that this generation recognizes that, listen, what our parents fought for was equality, but what we fighting for is existence. And so that means if we don't get it right now, that means that 20, 30 years ago, regarding from climate change to Black Lives Matter to the water you can't drink, if we don't get together, it means that our children won't live. And so you now see a whole new generation, almost like the Eartha Kitts and Harry Belafonte's and Dick Gregory's, and you kind of have this whole new kind of generation that's now kind of engaged, which is different. Now, again, you've had artists like the Jasuri X, who we just heard, right? And you've had artists like Killer Mike and other artists who've always have been in the game, and for me, they've always been Hip Hop Caucus all day, every day.
Talib,
all of them,
all these guys.
They keep it going throughout when it's not voting season. But I mean, to have this new generation step up, that's for hip hop is a change. That's why we can expect that.
And also I think other artists who may not be, marquee like a Vic Mensa or a Keke Palmer or you don't have to be like a well-known artist to get involved in this. You might be popular in your own neighborhood. That means you have influence. You should definitely get involved with this campaign as well, right?
No, most definitely. Man, we just did photo shoots, for instance, in Cleveland. We were in Cleveland yesterday. Over 40 artists who were in the Cleveland where the RNC is going to be showed up. We were in Philly before that. 20 artists who are there. Local. I mean, so I think that's what's important, to see these artists who are engaging in the process. But I think even more important, I think it's up to this election, which is November 8th. For those who are listening, November 8th. Make sure you get out and vote. But then beyond this, moving forward, because the 2 people who are now going to be running for office, right? Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. They're both 70. Right, in their 70s. That means that 30 years from now, they won't probably be here. Unless they get, they might, they'll be 100. But most of us in our generation, we will be. So it's not really about them. It's about us.
It's about us. Okay, thank you, Reverend Lennox Yearwood Jr. is here from the Hip Hop Caucus, and so is Mike Muse. Let's get into some political news.
And now, here's Mike Muse with the political news.
So let's get right to it and meet the candidates.
That completes the opening statement.
We're going to get right to it.
On Sway in the Morning.
Mike Muse, welcome back, man. You actually in the studio. Look at that. We got a guest for you, too, man.
Yeah, I only came back from Reverend Yearwood. That's why I'm
that's
here.
what it is?
Yeah. Only Reverend Year got me here.
So we were talking about this Brexit vote that took place overseas and in the UK, detaching itself from the EU, and what does that mean? What those implications have on us here domestically, and what have we seen so far? We saw the markets crash a little bit over there, and it's affected the global market as well. What else are we seeing?
Yeah, man, it's funny, interesting, Sway. The last couple of weeks, really last couple of months, we've only been talking about domestic issues, and really international global issues hasn't been at the forefront per se. But with the Brexit vote that got handed down now, it's all about the international and globalization and the global economy. And not only so, how does the UK, Europe, the EU fit in, but how do we fit into this play as America and American citizens in our role in trade and business and economics? What's fascinating is the Brexit result is almost a reflection of what would normally happen to American presidential elections the day after, where we do the exit pollings. Who came out to vote, how, and what margins, what areas, what categories. What we saw was that what happened was there was this inequality divide between the rich and poor, the have-nots, the rural cities versus the metropolitan cities versus the cosmopolitan cities. And that's exactly kind of what you're seeing here in the United States, is this split between domestic versus rural versus city versus metropolitan versus class versus inequality of that. And what's happening is Donald Trump now, interesting enough, is actually doubling down on that. And so he's actually going against party lines, or traditional Republican party lines, about NAFTA, which is like free trade, and about TPP, which stands for Trans-Pacific Partnerships. And so what he's saying is that we need to remove ourselves from the negotiation table of TPP. We also need to be stronger in our negotiations on NAFTA, or either withdraw altogether. We need to make China not convict them, but essentially call them out on currency manipulation. And we also need to be tougher negotiations on that. What's happening is that goes down a very slippery slope in terms of how U.S. goods and services are sold across the country, right? Or really across the world. Why we have TPP, why we have NAFTA, is to compete against the EU. There are just a conglomerate of the European countries that allow free trade amongst themselves. So there are no taxes as goods gets exchanged. But when we sell our products overseas, we get taxed on that. Especially in developing countries with the TPP, is that when the U.S. goes to sell automotive parts, for example, we get taxed over in Japan, we get taxed over in Singapore. But when other countries do it, there is no tax levied on that. So that's why it's important to have these type of free trade agreements in place. So that's something we have to really realize in terms of globalization.
How has Hillary Clinton, what has she come out and said since the Brexit vote came down, and how the global economy has been affected?
Yes, so Hillary is on the side of TPP. Hillary is on the side of free trade. Hillary understands the economic ramifications in terms of how we are this is one of those issues where it seems very global. It's not going to reach me. I'll never have it in my lifetime. But legit, it really will, because this is manufacturing. This is jobs. This is your livelihood at stake, essentially. And so you have, in one hand, Hillary really pro-free trade. On the other hand, you have Trump kind of anti-free trade and wants to kind of become more isolationist, which is a danger that we're facing even when you see in Turkey right now, the bombs that happen. Turkey is a very isolationist country that's occurring right now. They have enemies with Israel. They have enemies with Russia. And so they're operating within this vacuum of its space. Britain now, the UK, they're going to become an isolationist country. And Merkel came out strong yesterday. Merkel is the prime minister, or essentially the president of Germany. And she said there is going to be a hell of a price to pay for the UK getting out of this EU in terms of taxes, in terms of a cost to even exit. And the taxes, they're going to go to the back of the line to be able to now negotiate and sell their goods and services across countries they've already been used to. So the UK has really put themselves in a tough position and more of an isolationist position. They won't even be protected in terms of an invasion that's going to come over. So there's a lot of things that are shifting and shaping. And so I think in the next couple of weeks, we'll be more doing a deep dive into some of the global international issues and how that's affecting us here domestically. What's important to note before we wrap up is that the polls are tightening.
Well, the polls show that there's only a couple of points difference between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump right now, which is why we have the Reverend here. Is what plays into Respect My Vote campaign. It's more important than ever that everybody register to vote and participate and get engaged, right?
Absolutely. What's interesting, though, is what the data is suggesting. So the Quinnipiac poll suggests that Trump and Hillary are statistically tied, with Hillary Clinton at 42%, with Trump being at 40%. But when you break out in terms of gender and race, so Trump leads the whites 47% to 34%. Clinton leads the blacks 91% to 1%. But the most telling aspect about this is the Hispanic vote. With all the rhetoric that Donald Trump has said about immigration, about the borders, about building the walls, it's actually 50% to 33%. He leads 33% of the Hispanic vote, which means he's polling higher than McCain and Romney.
Yo, who's Hispanic in here? Get on the mic, man. Who's Hispanic in here? But say your name. Oh, Q, go ahead, man.
I'm Puerto Rican and black.
Yeah. What's going on? Y'all, you in the Hispanic community. You
all over the place.
Yo,
that's the only way you can describe it.
What's your name, man? Ryan. What are your thoughts? Why do you think that is? That even after all the rhetoric we heard from Trump or any political figure towards Hispanics, that Hispanics are still divided of whether or not they're going to vote for him or
not? It goes really deep. I mean, like, in Latin America is a big issue with colorism. Yeah. And I think that it carries over to America and people trying to assimilate to white culture, especially many Latinos. I'm Dominican, and I see a big divide outside because, you know, even in Dominican Republic, there's a huge issue of colorism, you know, issues with Haiti when most Dominicans are part Haitian. So, yeah, it has to do with that, you know, and that carries over to the States.
So they want to be white? Or they think they're thinking white by voting for Trump?
Yeah, it essentially may come down to that for some of them.
Maybe they're not Mexican. How about that? There's a million other Latin American countries that weren't talked about.
That's a very true point. That's a good point. That's a very good point in terms of that. Yeah. But what doubled down, though, is that has a ripple effect on all immigration in terms of unconscious biases that are played with all descendants of Hispanic heritage. Yeah. In terms of the Mexican rhetoric that he talks about.
Yeah, I don't think that what they think about Mexicans, they may not think about Dominicans, or, you know, or what he feels about Muslims, he may not think about other, you know, Hispanic heritages.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay.
And then also, too, don't think that just because, you know, what's also out there now is that Trump is going to come back to the center, he's going to change his rhetoric, that he's going to hire a new campaign staff, and he's changing. But that's not really happening.
Is it really about race, or is it really about economics?
It's both. It's both economics and race and inequality. And I want to be clear, I'm not advocating for Clinton or with Trump, but it's really fascinating in terms of how we break down the mindset of what's happening so that people don't think that this is a lock for either side, right? This is something in terms of we all need to be paying attention to the dynamics of this race. This is for the first time, an unconventional race. As you know, we predicted that Trump will win the Republican primary. I can no longer predict what's going to happen in the general election. I won't be able to predict it until the first debate. Once we have the first debate, then we'll get a good gauge.
Yeah, but we all predicted after that, Mike.
No, I did Trump in July last year.
Yeah, okay.
This is my anniversary, actually.
71% of Americans believe the economy is rigged. It didn't matter if the person was white, black, or Hispanic, or whether they identified as Republican, Democrat, or Independent. The majority feel the American dream comes with a huge asterisk that reads, only for the favored few.
Yes.
You know,
which is what Bernie Sanders has a wonderful op-ed. I shouldn't say he has a wonderful meaning. It's a really scathing op-ed and talking exactly about that, about how the economy seems rigged, about the inequalities of class and structure. And what he's saying is warning signs is that if we're not in tune to what happened in the Brexit, we're going to be really in for a rude awakening when we wake up one day and the globalization of our economy is exactly the same. It's really a story of the have versus have not. The political elite, the corporate elite are the ones who are essentially in control of this. And what's interesting about it was that those in the metropolitan and cosmopolitan areas of the UK actually shun those in the rural areas. Like, how could they? How could they vote? How could they think this way? How could they not be so smart enough? Which goes to that elitism, right? Which goes to that class, right? Which is really no different than what we're even saying here.
In the States.
The way that people talk about Trump, the way that people talked about Sanders, right? Like, how could those socialists be that way? How could those rural Southerners vote for this man? Or how can, you know what I mean? So it's just almost this chastising of those who are not considered to be of the elite class.
And we heard that as far as when people of color down south voted for Hillary Clinton, we heard progressives say, how could those people of color vote for Hillary, not for Bernie Sanders, which is also shows some of the kind of the progressive kind of elitism that comes out as well. I mean, you see that. And when they don't, it's almost like you don't have solidarity with our community. It's only like charity. Like, I'm going to feel sorry for your community, but your community can't make decisions for themselves. And so that's got to change. Hence why I respect my vote. It's not about even Bernie. I mean, Bernie or Hillary on the Democrat side or Trump. It's about what our community needs to succeed, like in the Brexit, for instance. But over here, how do we get more stores, better schools, better health care, clean water, or clean air? How do we get that? That's the key issue for our community.
Absolutely.
This is what I want to do. Once again, Reverend Yearwood, thank you for coming through. Respect my vote. We are on board. We are officially partners now here with Sway in the Morning, the Shade 45, Respect My Vote campaign. And for more information, they can go where?
They can go to respectmyvote.com to get more information, and more importantly, they can get out and vote. Please, you can go to respectmyvote.com today, register to vote at the website, get engaged, and more importantly, on November 9th, day after the election, that's when we really got to do our work together.
Okay, and Mike Muse, let's keep the conversation going, because there's a lot of people online from Kentucky, from Cleveland, from Miami, and they can hit you directly with questions, but also we want to put a question out there.
Yeah, let's continue the conversation about class. So citizens, hit me up. I would love to know, do you think this election cycle is about class? Class meaning economics. So feel free to hit me up on all my social media platforms. I am Mike Muse. I am Mike Muse, MUSNSAME on Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Thank you, Mike Muse. Okay, we got a lot of people coming by today. Samuel L. Jackson, Ricky Schroeder, Denzel Curry. But up next, we got sports.
Yeah, and I have some huge updates in the NBA.
Shade 45.
It's Sway in the Morning, only
on Shade 45.